Breaking news this hour. We're just going to remind you the U.S. has carried out airstrikes on artillery belonging to Islamic State fighters near the Iraqi city of Erbil. A Pentagon spokesperson has confirmed this. Media reports suggest hundreds of militants have been killed and wounded in the attack. President Obama had said this would be a last resort only if the jihadists attack the mainly Kurdish area where U.S. personnel are deployed. Let's discuss this now, the latest development, with political analyst William Andol, author of the book Full Spectrum Dominance, Totalitarian Democracy in the New World Order. Mr. Andol, Obama said strikes would only happen if his personnel are in danger. So do you think that this is the only reason that this has now gone through and this has happened?
No, I certainly don't think so. I think the Obama administration is being extremely hypocritical, if not utterly dishonest, about its policy toward Iraq since the emergence of ISIS back in early June as a victorious military force. The ISIS has been supplied with American weapons. Let's ask how that happened so conveniently, almost without a drop of blood being shed. There are reports that ISIS is nothing but a retooling of the Muslim Brotherhood supported all along by the Obama administration in Egypt, in Syria, and elsewhere, and that this is being financed by Qatar. And the Obama administration is quite happy with the ISIS developments. And I think what they're doing now, on the one hand, it's an answer to a humanitarian outcry, including from the Roman Catholic Pope in Rome, to come to the rescue of thousands of Yazidi Christians that are being murdered by the psychopaths of the so-called Islamic State. This is no state at all, but this is a terror operation. And the roots of that go back to the CIA's Mujahideen operation in Afghanistan. You can trace the lineage quite clearly. So I think Obama is lying to the world. He's lying to the American people about what the U.S. military is doing with these surgical airstrikes. Let's see how limited they are. I think the al-Maliki government is out of its mind to invite U.S. military to make airstrikes. There are other militaries that could make such strikes that could be invited instead, but that's another question. So
let me just come back to what you've just said, just to get our viewers into what you're saying, because this is a lot. What you're saying is that you think there's other ulterior motives to why the U.S. has gone in there. However, there's been an outcry saying we need help, we cannot fight these militants by ourselves. The U.S. being there, is this going to stop these Islamic jihadists from moving any further into the areas we've seen them take over?
I don't think Washington is particularly interested in stopping the Islamic State or the ISIS jihadists. I think what they're interested in is a Biden plan, so-called Joe Biden's proposal, for splitting Iraq into a Kurdish part, into a Shiite part, and into a Sunni part. The response of Obama to pleas of help from Prime Minister al-Maliki from the beginning in early June, or even a year ago, has been Maliki should resign and bring in the opposition, bring in ISIS into the dialogue of the government. This is like what Victoria Nuland did in Ukraine back last November with the Maidan Square protest, to bring in the neo-Nazis and the others into a dialogue with the Yanukovych-elected government. So the Obama administration has not been at all honest in its dealings with the Iraqi government in the past. It certainly wasn't honest with the world on the justification for the bombing and the invasion of Iraq in 2003, the weapons of mass destruction.
I was actually going to touch a little bit on that and ask you, that war was dubbed the invasion of Iraq as a dumb war. Why is it then that they're getting involved again?
I think it very much has to do with oil, but the control of oil. And the control of oil is a Pentagon, CIA, Wall Street priority, not because the United States needs the oil for its own economy. There is no economy virtually left in the United States, but the United States needs to control other nations independently making bilateral agreements, China and Iraq, Russia with various other nations in the region, gas pipelines from Iran through Iraq into Syria. The United States, or the people that are controlling Washington policy, let's say, they want to prevent that and make sure they control the energy flow lines in order to control China, in order to control the emergence of a counterpole, a multipolar world, if you will, such as the BRICS laid a cornerstone for a few weeks ago, last month in Brazil, with the establishment of a anti-IMF development bank among the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. So I think at this point, the people who've run the policy in Washington since Bretton Woods, since 1945, the powerful interests behind the Wall Street banks, behind the military industry complex that Eisenhower warned about, these people are terrified that they are losing their grip on world power. And I think it's a better thing for the world if they do lose that grip, and very quickly, before they destroy everything.
And then what happens to the Islamic State right now? There are reports that they are causing havoc along their way, along their new path that they've, the new caliphate. So what happens to them? How does the world take control of that?
Well, I think they can dry up their financial resources very quickly. They can. The United States government has the ability to hang the ISIS out to dry within 72 hours if it's so decided. It doesn't want to. That's my judgment. It doesn't want to do anything about ISIS because they're quite happy with what the ISIS is doing to create havoc in the region. They want chaos. That's the lesson in Egypt with the Muslim Brotherhood there. That's the lesson in Syria. That's the lesson in Libya. Samantha Powers, the United Nations ambassador of the United States, responsibility to protect. Susan Rice, the National Security Advisor of Obama, who seems to have extraordinary influence over the president's decision. These people want to create chaos and death and destruction. There is no other interpretation possible. Excuse me for being blunt, but this is the reality in the world today. And I think the more we talk honestly about what's going on, the more we can do something about it and not have illusions about, oh, Obama's made a mistake in his judgment of the danger of the ISIS and so forth. They knew exactly because they supported that. There are reports that the U.S. ambassador in Ankara is the key figure in the ISIS operation. So let's investigate that.
Mr. Andor, blunt and very passionate you are. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on this story that's ongoing. We're watching very carefully here on RT International. William Andor there, everybody, foreign analyst, as well as author.